Good afternoon, everybody. Joseph F. Price. I've often answered the question, what's the easiest way to get rid of an addiction? What is the easiest way to get rid of an addiction? I got an interesting answer for you. And I got an answer that's guaranteed that is the best and the easiest way that you'll ever get rid of any addiction. You know what it is? It's called don't get involved in it in the first place. So, this afternoon or evening or morning, wherever you are, I have a guest with me. Her name is Lynn Griesemer. She wrote a book called Porn Free: How to Decrease the Demand for Pornography. And it's just that. It's about how to, we spend so many hours and time working on ridding an addiction. And like I said, the easiest way to rid an addiction of any sort is not to have it in the first place. So that's what we're going to talk about for the next couple of moments. Let me welcome my good friend here, Ms. Lynn Griesemer. Griesemer, right?
Griesemer, that's great.
Griesemer.
Hi, Joseph. Great to be here. Nice to meet you.
Great to have you here. It's my pleasure. So I guess the best place to start usually with this kind of thing is to start with your story, and I'm going to try to kind of guide you so that we can break it down in parts. So if you would tell me where you grew up, where you're
I
from, and
grew
where.
up in a small town called Rocky Hill, Connecticut. I spent 17 years there and then was drawn to Boston University. I loved my college years in Boston. I've traveled all around the country since then. I wanted to be a clinical psychologist, but I went off track, and my father suggested I try Army ROTC my sophomore year or junior year of college. So I did. I was offered a scholarship. I became an Army officer. I did that for 4 years full time, 4 years National Guard. Met my husband in the Army, got married at the age of 22. We've been happily married for 37 years. Let's say happily for 35 and throw in some hardships here and there. But it's been great. We have 6 adult children. And so I was always the athletic type of person. I was a partier. I was shy. I was athletic. And then I decided I needed to come out of my shyness because I have leadership abilities. And so I came out of my shyness when I was in college. And I am a very strong woman who really notices in our culture and noticed at a young age the atrocities and the mistreatment of women and children, the degradation of women. So I sensed that early on. So it makes sense for me to be drawn to writing a book on porn. And believe me, I didn't set out to write a book on porn. I've written 12 books, and my topics are unassisted home birth, marriage, and public speaking. And this book just kind of emerged in me, and I just feel very strongly about it. I've always felt strongly about some of the issues in life where they want to change the laws, they want to fight it, they want to deal with it after it happens. And I guess just got fed up that nobody is talking about real solutions on how to decrease, because I'm not going to say the word stop the demand for pornography. I don't think we'll ever do that. There are going to be people who are drawn to porn. You can't stop it 100%. That's a Pollyanna, pie in the sky belief, but we can greatly decrease it in many ways. And that's what I set out to do in this book. I actually, do you want me to talk about how I came to write this book? You asked where I grew up, but I could segue.
Oh, by all means, if you would, please.
Okay, great. Because there's not much to talk about my background. Not, okay, family situation. I'm the oldest of 3 kids. Life in Connecticut was quiet, and it was generally a good upbringing, you could say. But the how I was drawn to this book was I was actually getting ready to write more on home birth or marriage. I have so many book ideas inside of me. And in July of 2020, a question just jumped into my mind, Perhaps I was seeing a lot of it around me, hearing about cases, news, whatever. My question was, what makes a 50-year-old man want to have sex with a 13-year-old girl? Where do we get to in that point? That is not normal. It's abnormal. It just, it doesn't make sense. Now, of course, we know there are multiple of reasons what brings a man to that place. But within 24 hours, I just was brought back to the idea of pornography. And porn is like a gateway drug. Porn to me is like smoking weed. You start with what, when you and I were younger, they had soft porn. It was just like a provocative picture of a woman, chesty, scantily clad, soft porn that made its way from Playboy into Penthouse and Hustler. And so pornography is really a gateway drug. A guy will start with porn and it escalates. And so you could think of pedophiles, sex trafficking as meth, cocaine, heroin. It just, you take porn and it gives you ideas, it gives you permission, it plants the seed. So anyways, I wanted to write this book. I thought on pedophiles, but then I was taken back to pornography, and I'm glad I focused on pornography. And I have done research over the years. I've known about it, doing some marriage coaching. I know that porn is very involved in some marriages, and it really can be very destructive on people's lives. And as your listeners and your guests, your men that you have on your show will show, it's very destructive. It just takes your life and it spirals downhill until you reach a moment where you can't live like this anymore.
So let me jump in on marriages. You had mentioned something in the book. What percentage of marriages that failed is there that pornography element, to your knowledge?
The lawyers will tell you, they're the ones who know most. They 60%, approximately 60%. That's a lot of people, and that's various levels of porn. And an interesting thing happened. I was writing this book and I didn't tell a lot of friends and people. I just kind of kept it to myself. A few close friends knew about it. And then when I was ready to start revealing it, when I was getting to the end point of this book coming out, and I was like, oh yes, I'm writing a book on porn, and they would laugh, and like, what? And then everybody had a story. Every single person I talked to had something to say. Oh, my nephew just got divorced. They have a new baby. He was into porn and he didn't admit it, and the wife couldn't live with it anymore, and they got divorced. Oh yes, my nephew was into porn. Oh, I caught actually, I commended this mom. My son came to me, my college age son came to me and told me he was having a hard time with porn. And I said, congratulations, you raised a nice family of communication where he came to you. In almost all of the cases, the guy gets found out. It's a secret, hidden, shameful, just a secret part of life. And usually people stumble across it. They're checking the account to do bills. They're going to their 15-year-old son's little iPad to make sure, oh, did you get your history paper in? And oh my gosh, and you see all the sites that they visit. So usually people are discovered. And so anyways, I'm going off track. I forgot what.
No, I mean, it's one of those things that, yeah, you can go off track, and even in this conversation, we can only scratch the surface. So even if you go
Absolutely.
left or you go right or you go up and down, the best that we are able to do in this conversation is to scratch the surface. One of the things also, while we're talking about marriages, it's like 300% likely to have an affair if a person is heavily using porn.
Yeah, that's what they say. That's what Fight the New Drug says. Covenant Eyes, the intersecting statistic is, and I'm talking mostly about men here. They do say a growing percentage of women are doing porn, affected by porn. Let's just say 50 Shades of Grey could be a pornography that women like. They think it's a romantic story, this young woman with this 27 or 25-year-old billionaire, and it's S&M and whatever it is, deviant, it's deviant sex, and women think this is romantic, erotic. So we're talking mostly men here. And yes, 300% the person who has a porn habit or addiction is 300% likely to have an affair, a hookup or an affair. And that should be really alarming. That should be alarming to couples. And I call for zero tolerance of pornography. I don't think it has any use. So here's another thing older friends said to me when I was writing this book. Well, Lynn, how about if I just use a little soft porn just to get me going in the bedroom, just to get us going? And I've come to the conclusion that no porn, because just imagine what's happening. The couple is looking at somebody else doing a sex act, and we don't know in the making of this porn what happened. Was there sex trafficking? Was there women against their will? So you're looking at somebody else. Then you're going to go have sex with your partner or your spouse. What I say is work on developing communication and relationship where the two of you are looking at each other face to face, and you are responding to each other and asking and showing each other what turns you on, so that your sex expression with your spouse is exclusively between the two of you. You're actually being a little bit of a voyeur if you're looking at some porn and somebody else to then help you get going.
And also by doing that, they're screwing up their sexual template, which is basically, it's called the sexual arousal template, which is the sequence of events that goes and causes them arousal. So basically, they're causing themselves to be addicted just by doing that. So no, that, like you said, none is okay. Zero is okay.
Zero.
Let's see here. One of the things that I find that's important about your work and the book is that you're on Facebook too, by the way, live.
I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn.
No, I'm telling you, you're on Facebook live right now. Everybody.
Oh, I am. Okay. Shoot, I would have told people. I would have told
well,
people.
I just upped the ante so that we have to play a better game. I kind of put it out there.
Okay.
So, yeah, kids and porn, because that's really where it starts. I mean, like when I smoked cigarettes for a bunch of years and then quit. And basically, no one starts smoking at 40 years old. Basically, people start smoking in their teens. So if you can keep it out of their teens and their early 20s, then they probably won't smoke. And it's the same thing with porn. If you can keep it out of the kids, then they won't do it. And then basically, one of the things that you're talking about is, instead of trying to make the kids not, trying to make the kids not do it, how about having the kids be empowered so that they choose not to do it on their own? So, I like how you talk about that. And as a matter of fact, one of the ways that you talk about leading the kids to a porn-free life, which is actually one of the ways that you can lead kids to an excellent life, is 10 virtues. You know what those are right offhand? Because I wrote stuff and sometimes I forget it. So you want to shoot the 10 virtues, or you want me to tell?
So we want to talk about the 10 virtues. I will list, and it was in no particular order, but 10 virtues to help combat pornography. One, and I'll just say what they are, and we can talk about whatever. Integrity, that is adhering to sound moral and ethical principles, having integrity, teaching your children integrity. And again, this will be age related. You can't, some of these are more complex and more advanced for older children. The second one is humility. That is a modest view of one's importance. We also have charity, giving something to others in need, unselfish love and generosity. We want to teach our kids to be charitable. Another one would be prudence, the habit of deciding well at each moment what one must do. It's also self-governance. So prudence is not just, being a prude, you're very uptight. It's more than that. It's self-governance in many areas of life. Could be related to food. All right, chastity, the practice of using reason and restraint of the sexual instinct. And it's funny, our culture gives free rein, and nobody wants to hear chastity. They'll giggle and laugh at you. But without chastity, without some type of restraint, anything goes. You go on Tinder. Isn't it bizarre how people will just go out, go to a bar, get drunk, go to Tinder, drink, and hook up with someone? You're stripping your clothes off, you're totally naked with each other, and you're sharing yourself in the highest physical sense with someone, and you don't even know their last name, you don't know anything about them. So chastity is sort of being, well, a little prudent, but it's just using reason and restraint. And restraint is a good thing. I want chastity in my marriage. I don't want my husband having 3 or 4 other partners. I want him and I to be exclusive monogamy. That would be our goal. Chastity when it comes to other partners. All right. Another virtue that I introduce to parents in trying to raise a porn-free child would be temperance, moderation in action, thought, or feeling. And again, remember the 1970s was the me generation. It's all about me. I can get whatever I want whenever I want. There was no temperance. You could just, I want to go hang out with friends and get high. No, we need to have temperance, and these virtues are a good thing. So part of my book is really turning upside down the runaway train that the culture has gotten to. And this is kind of taking a step back and taking a step to the side and really examining, we need to do a better job to guide our children. Fortitude, the strength of mind that enables a person to meet danger or bear pain or adversity with courage, being courageous. And we're almost at the end of our 10. I think we have 3 more. Diligence, careful or persistent work or effort. We teach our kids diligence in their homework, in the organizations that they join, in the activities that they do, to be diligent. It's a really good value. So it's kind of like teaching your kids morals and values, these virtues. Detachment, living simply and peacefully, avoiding whims and excess while having a balanced temperament. What's really hard are these phones. Even we adults are attached to our phones in the evenings. We keep them under our pillow. We look at it first thing in the morning. We're not detached. They're almost attached to our body, taking pictures, taking selfies. So detachment is something we need to teach our children. And then in each of these virtues, I do talk about how it relates to pornography, being detached, not all of a sudden you see a picture of something and don't be pulled in. Oh my gosh, I have to look at it. I have to have it. No, try to be detached. And obedience is very important. It's important to follow directives by adhering to what is right, good, or true. We need to be obedient when we drive our cars and follow traffic laws. Obedience is very important. You have chaos in life if you don't have obedience. So those are the 10 virtues. And I just talk just briefly about each one of them. And my book is really for parents too. And it's less than 150 pages. I could have made this book twice. It's got a lot of different topics in it. I could have made it twice as long, more research, more explanation, but I felt a sense of urgency to get this book out and to get it out for busy lives where you have 3 hours to read this book and then think about your own life and how you're going to apply it. So those are the 10 virtues.
Well, I appreciate the 10 virtues, and also I appreciate the way that you spaced the book out, because I felt that it it did the job in such a way that you didn't expand on any one subject to the extent that one would get bored. So you were able to attain that balance very well. Now, one of the things that you did talk about was raising kids to be strong enough to look away. And before you jump in there, since most of our audience is actually porn users, it's funny how we're teaching them how to look away before they become porn users. And then after they become porn users, one of the greatest skills they can ever have is look away. So talk about look away.
All right, look away. We know that porn will find us. We know it. It's just a matter of how old will we be, and will we be equipped? And when we come across it, we hope that you will look away, because the human mind and our human selves are curious, and curiosity killed the cat. And it can really, that's what can bring you down. And so when we talk about look away, and I've listened to different people talk about pornography and how they came across it. You can have the best parents teach you to avoid it. You can have internet blockers so that you won't come across it. But the one time you go to your friend's house, there's some porn that comes out, and the parent is not in control. So your kid will have to learn to look away. You should raise your child to be very strong. I'll tell one story of a school psychologist. She saw a bunch of 7-year-old boys hovered around the computer in the library. And she thought, well, that's odd. They're quietly all looking at a computer. Are they looking at a game? Well, what's going on? So she walked over, and the very clever, smart 7-year-old, they know what to do. With a few little hits of the keyboards, he got out of all the porn sites and whatever. But guess what? The school district has monitors on where everybody has been searching. So she looked it up later, and sure enough, she found they were looking at porn. Now, imagine you're the mom of one of these 7-year-olds in the group of boys. I try to show a parent how they can do this, and we won't go into detail of it now. If you want to get my book, you can go into detail. But the bottom line of that I'm trying to accomplish is, are you raising that 7-year-old that might be the only one person to say, this is wrong? Oh no, get out of this. There's going to be levels of what kids can do. The shyer kid might feel shocked and quiet and don't say anything. One kid might be a little more vocal and say, oh, let's not look at this. But for the most part, the kids will probably be quiet. Is there going to be a 7-year-old that would go and tell a teacher? And that's not tattletaling. That's telling. It's again with the virtues of obedience. This is not what your eyes and your mind should see. And when we look away, another important thing of looking away is, what is your gut feeling telling you? And I talk about this, very important in raising a daughter. What do you feel when you see something, or when somebody says something to you, or someone says, hey, you want to come over to my house for some cookies? Your male neighbor to the 6-year-old girl who's outside playing, and the stranger or the neighbor, or maybe not the stranger, maybe someone you know pretty well, asks you over. Your gut feeling for the 6-year-old girl, if the parents are in touch and doing their job right, is that, oh no, you do not go anywhere alone, not even with the friends, not even unless with my approval or I'm escorting you. So we often ignore our gut feelings. We often do not look away because we're curious. And yes, little kids might not look away, but we really need to start young. So as you can see with my book, it goes beyond what some of these reputable organizations are putting out, like Fight the New Drug, Enough is Enough. There's many organizations that are here is how we educate your children about porn. Well, with all due respect, at some point it's too late. You can't just sit down with your 13 or your 15-year-old. Okay, Johnny, guess what? You might come across porn, and this is what it's all about. And the kid probably can look at you and think, Mom, you don't even know half of it. I've seen stuff you probably didn't even know was in existence. So it's too late if you think you're going to sit down with a 13 or 15-year-old. You really need to already, at the age appropriate level. And that's where these organizations are good, at the age appropriate level, what's a best way to talk with a 5-year-old or a 10-year-old or a 13-year-old about these topics. So having a great rapport with your children and strengthening them so that they will turn away. Because
now here's what's a little off on that. I read a study, and the study said the average age that a parent thinks that they should talk to a child about porn is X. The average age that a kid was getting into porn was why. In other words, it's 2 years earlier that they're getting into porn than the parents think it's time for them to talk. So like you said, it's 2 years too late. The average age that they're looking at, what does your stats say the average age? Because the average age they think to tell their kids to talk about porn is like 12 or 13 or 14, and they're getting into porn before that.
Yeah, the stats say 11. Some
Okay.
people it's 5 years old, 8 years old, 9 years old. It depends on your home situation. And unfortunately, it is generational. If your parents are using it, the kids might be younger. If it, unfortunately, in the incest and the sexual abuse, it's earlier. And so I like to think that maybe there's no set age. And so
No, there isn't. There isn't.
and so with my parenting, this is how I handled it. I was drawn to attachment parenting. And what that means is a home birth, natural birth, home birth, breastfeeding for a long period of time, the family togetherness. And so my youngest two were an unassisted home birth, which means no doctor, no midwife, just me and my husband at home chose to do this. We had 4 very easy hospital births. And for whatever reason, I found my way to unassisted. And so my children knew one time they were outside playing and the baby was born at 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. And within 10 or 10 minutes, hey, you want to meet your new brother? We were in bed and the kids came in. So they started seeing sexuality birth as natural, happy and positive. And I wasn't afraid of giving birth. I didn't have severe pain. And then an outgrowth of that is breastfeeding. And my oldest son is 34, my youngest son is 20, and I have 4 girls in between. So my oldest son would be, we had great conversations late into the night. When he was 7 years old, I was breastfeeding one of his siblings, maybe the 4th or the 5th child, and I'm breastfeeding the baby, and my son Rob and I were talking. And so right there, when he was 7, he saw a mother's breasts were for a baby breastfeeding. So he started seeing from an early age, what sexuality was. My husband and I practiced natural family planning for many years. And I had a chart where I kept track of certain signs about my body, and it was by my bed. And so, one of my daughters, when she was a teenager, or something, they just started knowing, well, what is this for? And why do you do it? And what is this all about? So you can teach comfortably your children for wherever your beliefs are, as far as sexuality or marriage, you can start teaching your kids at a young age. So now when the topic of porn comes in, and it just all happened naturally. So I can't tell you what age I taught my kids about porn. We were delayed with the cell phones. So most of my kids were born in the 1990s. So the cell phones came to them at age 16 or 14. Nowadays, kids are getting them at 5, 6, and 7. Mm-hmm. And I know parents want them, when they drop their kids off at school, they want to communicate. And so the cell phone usage is much younger. And that right there is, that's tough. So I think that if we talked about porn, I probably said, probably maybe we saw billboards of a chesty woman or adult store. You're driving along the highway and you're heading down in North Carolina, South Carolina, or whatever, I-95, adult store, adult XXX. And, when kids ask questions, don't be uptight, answer them at their level. Oh, what's that? And I don't want to present sex as being shameful to my children, but, that's adult store. That I would throw in my opinion, how it's not acceptable or it's derogatory of women. And, I would try to give like an op-ed answer to my children when they asked. And, I said, well, you might come across something that makes you feel uneasy or uncomfortable, or that is shocking. And I hope you can feel comfortable to tell me about it, because I'd like to know, how they feel. So there are many things to answer the question of, do you sit down with your kid and formally talk about porn? I think the answer is no. I think it gets woven into your life, into your family.
Okay, now here's the fun one. What about when you catch them?
Number one, I'm not one to scold. I wouldn't say naughty, naughty, terrible, terrible. No, you. This is why we adults need to be comfortable with it. And so let's talk up to your men who are mainly listening to this podcast or watching this. As the men are overcoming their porn addictions, you might be called to also serve as a good example as the father. And so you're working through your own stuff, and shaming a child isn't good. Sometimes we know if you say, don't do it, don't go behind that, don't go do it, it makes the kid want to go do it. So there are things you can say like, oh, now let's say you found it first. I don't believe in sneaking, going into your kid's room and looking for a diary to read, trying to infringe on their personal territory. I don't believe in doing that, but hopefully you have a mutual trust. So let's just say you find your kid's laptop and they have porn on it. At first, the mom is probably going to be shocked. And so you have to kind of settle down your anger, calm down. You might not want to run and approach right away. You might want to wait till the next day or later that night. You might want to discuss with your spouse about it. But you do want to bring it up. You don't want to let it go and ignore it and avoid it, because that means everyth's okay. And so you have to face your discomfort. So wherever level you are, whether you're addicted, whether you're having issues, you really need to confront it. Or guess what, Joseph? Sex education is going to happen with this child if you don't intervene and get them on the right track. This is where sex education should be taught at home. And it should be, so you find out about it. And so maybe the next day you would say, oh, David, I noticed on your iPad, I didn't go looking for it, but I noticed there was some pornography. Can you tell me about it? And there might be, it's none of your business. What are you doing? Why are you going on my iPad? Oh, I just came across, So you want to create a situation where there will be a back and forth, a rapport, a conversation. You're going to try to help your kid stop doing the porn. So if they shut themselves down, you might not make it anywhere. They might shut themselves down and maybe you can't talk about it that day. Maybe you can talk about it another day. Okay, well, when you cool down, we're not done discussing this. I'd like to discuss it. You, the parent, are in charge. And, you can't let your kid walk all over you. So there's a number of different ways to approach the situation. What are you comfortable with? What is your kid comfortable with? But you do want to confront it. You want to confront it gently. You want to confront it where you're going to get openness back and forth. If you're not getting openness, let it hang out and maybe come back to it the next day.
And sometimes when you're in the hot seat like you are, you forget some of those things.
Yeah.
Like listen and not lecture. That's one of your foundational points. And that's what I was saying. Listen, not lecture. Now, you can talk about these in the order that you want. Gaming and porn. And then you can talk about domestic violence and porn. Any order that you want. Sex trafficking and porn. Any order that you want, those three.
Gaming and porn, probably makes billions of dollars. Porn sneaks its way in. Even with something you don't think is porn, you think it's a shooting game, but you got these sexy woman, skinny little 13-inch waist with a 42-inch chest. And this is the image that young boys are seeing. They're being bombarded with the images of a woman's body. And that's not a real woman's body. So with my two sons, they did do gaming. There were games that were not allowed. We didn't do Call of Duty. We didn't do Grand Theft Auto, whatever, but they could do shooting games. They could do various internet online games with other people because I trusted them. My one son didn't use the F word. Occasionally, maybe he's 20 now. I might have heard it out of his mouth, but I congratulated him for the gaming that he did wow, I hear these other people on the other side, oh, F this, F this. It's like a word like water. And I thanked him for keeping his language cleaner. And I said, I don't like the way these guys are talking, but I understand that's how they talk. And
They
I'm
were dropping more bombs than they were actually dropping bombs. Okay, go ahead.
yeah. So with gaming and porn, with boys and gaming, here is a really good rule that worked well in my house. My boys could have computers in their rooms. They could be on the computer late at night, midnight, 1 a.m. They always had the computer facing. They sometimes can shut the door, but when I felt like it, leave the door open. At any given time, I could go walking by, open the door, see what they're doing. I have every right as a parent to do it, no matter what age, unless they ask me, oh, mom, I'm going to be doing live stream and we're doing this, this, and this. And I knew there was not going to be any porn involved. Okay, you get your privacy. But they knew that my eyes were there in a second and would be monitoring. So then they had to police their behavior. That's working on the virtues. They had to make the right choice, not doing it. So the mom should have some kind of control. Don't just let your kid go off with this device all on their own, huddled in a corner. You need to know what they're doing, but you don't have to be a helicopter parent while you're doing it. So gaming and porn, basically, porn just doesn't exist. In a respectful, mature person, we have no room for porn.
Now, one of the things I did want to jump in and make a point, I don't know if you were aware of it. I was around this stuff for like 3 years before I was aware of it. It's a portion, and I don't get caught up in stats, but it's almost like 25% of the pornography is accessed through those gaming boxes. Did you know that?
I'm not sure I knew that.
Yeah, because they're like they're like browsers. You can turn that into like a browser basically. So there's a lot on, and again, the stats, I don't really get caught in the stats, but there's a bulk of pornography that's accessed that time. Another interesting fact is apparently local time, whatever that is, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, is a high pornography access point. Real simple, people access a lot of porn at work, and also in the afternoon there's a spike in usage because kids are watching porn and doing homework. There's also a spike in the summertime, as well as whenever kids are on holiday vacations. They used to have sites that you could track that a lot easier. Not so easy nowadays, but you could track that. So how about domestic violence in porn?
I didn't get too much into domestic violence in my book, but we do know that it's an escalation. We do know that porn is not just for sexual release. It could be for soothing. It could be an emotional reason. You feel abandoned, you feel alone, your parents just got divorced, you're not doing anything productive, and you're in your room, you're ignored, and you come across porn and you find it, and young boys discover masturbation and orgasm. Wow, this feels good. Well, this feels really good. And so you go back for a second time, a third time, you develop a habit. And so that little young boy was not really looking for sexual outlets. He discovered it. He was abandoned. He was soothing. It makes him try to relax. However, we do know that depression is pretty high amongst porn users. But domestic violence, again, the making of porn can be domination, men over women, a power play. We know that when Deep Throat came out in 1972 or 73, Linda Lovelace, Marciano, did not make a lot of money as the porn star or porn performer in that movie. Everyone around her did, the distributors, the movie houses, so she was violated. And basically pornography is used as a power play in our culture, in the industry. You're going to see more women. I'm not sure if they burn out within 3 months as porn performers. Their reproductive health is in need of serious medical fixing. because they've just been, barbaric, slammed, whatever kind of rough sex in the making of these movies, all because they think it's entertainment for people. So domestic violence is on the continuum of porn. It's on the continuum of domination. We know that a lot of money is made in sex trafficking and prostitution, and women who get caught up in this unfortunately end up taking on a substance abuse problem. They end up being enslaved to their pimps or their owners, and they get beat up, and they have to go back out and provide sex for their johns, to make money back to the pimp. So domestic violence is a way to keep control of women in the sex industry as a control. There's just a lot of anger. Just think about people who just are 100% involved in pornography, sex trafficking. It's not a peaceful life. And so a peaceful life does not include domestic violence or violence. So I can't really speak. I didn't really write about domestic violence, but I just talked about the continuum: porn, pedophilia, sex trafficking. So I didn't really delve too much into the domestic violence.
Well, it does show up, and it shows up because of the fact that heavy porn users have a warped opinion of women, and that warped opinion is actualized. And one of the ways that it's actualized is through domestic violence. Now, you were talking about trivialization of certain things. So talk about what porn trivializes.
Porn, in my book, I talk about human sexuality. And when we talk about human sexuality, one of the topics I talk about is biological design. And I didn't want to make my book necessarily Catholic or Christian. I wanted to come up with this idea of biological design. This is where my book is going to get controversial, and it's going to get difficult. The biological design tells us that when we have life, and this is not, it doesn't matter what political affiliation you're with, it doesn't matter what religion you're with, it doesn't matter what your age is. What is biology? In order to have a living creature, we have three things that we need. We need an environment in which to thrive. We need the right food or nourishment. If you're a plant, you need sunlight, photosynthesis. Human beings, we need food and nourishment to keep us alive. And number three, reproduction. If we don't have reproduction, biology collapses. We cannot sustain ourselves. So now when I say that, that's going to piss a lot of people off. Okay, well, are you homophobic? Because the biological design is a male and a female. So where does that leave homosexuality? Well, I don't discuss homosexuality. Where does that leave me with IVF and surrogacy and all of these things I want to take with biology and, as a human being, make a change? And that's where natural birth is very important in biology. We need C-sections, we need doctors, we need medical equipment and hospitals when things go wrong. But biology is set up to ensure, in general, most people will live with natural outgrowth. Then I talk about breastfeeding in my book. What are breasts for? Are they for men? Well, they became for men definitely in the 1950s when we had Playboy came out in 1953. We had the commercialization of infant formula. So women were told by doctors, look at this frothy white milk from the formula company. That looks healthier than your bluish breast milk. And women were taken away from breastfeeding and into giving their babies bottles. And my pro breastfeeding argument is that oxytocin is flowing from mother to baby. She's only about 10 inches away as she's breastfeeding. They have like a little close bonding and nurturing going on. The little foot is kicking and the baby is smiling and cooing. Now, this is not to shame or tell women who cannot breastfeed that you're inferior. I'm just saying, let's go back to the biological design. What does the biological design tells us? It tells us that breastfeeding is a good thing. and everything flows from there.
Okay, so let's talk about oxytocin. So I didn't know what that was until 4 years ago. So a whole bunch of people might not know what that is. So what is oxytocin?
I am not a scientist.
I mean,
However,
generally,
let's
yeah.
oxytocin are the good hormones, the love hormones. And where does oxytocin flow and why should we have it? It really warms our heart. It's manufactured when you have a great outing with friends. It's manufactured during sex for the man and woman.
When you hug people.
When you hug, hugs, kisses, warmth, breastfeeding. And we need more oxytocin in this world than just hits of dopamine. Oh, I need my fix of chocolate. Oh, I really enjoy gambling. It gives me a rush. The oxytocin is a healthy rush, and we need more of that.
I'm gonna go get me a rush of oxytocin. Keep talking about oxytocin.
All right. So oxytocin is really something that is underestimated in our culture. And it's something I think we need for survival. Yeah, pets. You know how good pets are. Bringing pets into convalescent homes of elderly people who don't hug as much, who don't have visitors. You bring dogs and cats. Yes, it is. We're not fighting anything with oxytocin. We're not antagonizing. It just really, the love flows. And we really need to do more, put ourselves in a situation where we're going to have more love.
Yeah, that's good. You know, it's funny that you were mentioning that book, Dopamine Nation.
Yeah, you mentioned it too. I loved it, huh? Anna.
Yeah, I don't remember a whole bunch about that book, but I do remember something that's crazy that I will share, and this is how how extended that people's addiction can be. This guy actually took an old electronic device. It was actually a phonograph. People that are young don't know what that is. It's a record player. So he took an electronic device and somehow wired it and took springs and whatnot and attached it to his penis and was shocking himself. And he got addicted to shocking himself, and he kept throwing it away, and then every couple weeks he'd go back in the trash can and re-rig it up, and he was doing therapy. That's basically what I remember from the book. But I will say this: one of the things that is true with most of these disorders of today, the process disorders, gaming, shopping addiction, gambling addiction, as well as pornography addiction. It's an electronic addiction. It's an addiction of the phone. It's a disorder one of the disorders of the phone. It's many disorders, but definitely people not having any kind of reign over their phone is one place to start. And they're looking for dopamine in the wrong places. Mm-hmm. So that's my little 2 cents.
So yeah, so when men are coming off addiction of porn, they've got to find a new interest, and especially accountability would be good. Joining a men's group at church. I'm a very physical person. I'm an endurance athlete, long distance swimming, and I love it. And it's very healthy. It'd be healthy to get into exercise, healthy to just come up with some new hobbies and new habits and make a new friend or two, maybe get a pet, go on long walks with your dog. There's so many things. And I like listening to your podcast. The one guy that you interviewed, he became alive. He started doing new things, and he feels like he wasted his life for several years while he was doing porn. And I love how you said fantasy versus imagination. When you're in porn, a fantasy is never going to come true, but your imagination, you have to start thinking and imagining, and then take action in life and manifest something real in your life, real, valuable, and productive.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. Actually, I did a podcast. It's on the YouTube about To Catch a Predator and how all those people were porn addicts, because they are.
Yeah.
In many of those, if you look at them real hard, they caught them and found them with porn. And if you listen to some of those chats of those predators, there's references of porn. There's all kinds of stuff that people do that shows that they do porn. I'll tell you a funny story. I was looking for a lawnmower. I live in a senior community. Okay, so just be in there with the conversation. So I sent a text to a neighbor. Yeah, I'm going to bring my wife over. Can we come and look at the lawnmower? So I sent it to the wrong number. Didn't know that.
Okay.
So about 5 minutes later, I don't remember how long it was. Some guy sends me a picture of some porn back. So I know I got the wrong person, but I'm like, I just had to block
Yeah.
it because it's like I can't address it
Yeah.
because there's nothing I can do to sell you on how you're going to change your behavior. So I'm
Right.
not going to waste my time because you're going to try to gaslight me or
That's kind
something.
of funny. That's weird.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't think he knew what he was doing. And then at the same time, I said, like I told my wife, I said, I could have taken the route of, being mean to him.
Yeah.
And I said, do you think maybe I could hurt a porn addict's feelings? Do you think maybe I have enough ammunition to do that? She said, yeah, I think you do. I just left it alone. But yeah, that's how porn, like somebody sends you a text, the wrong text comes, and then you respond by sending them porn back. And I already
Yeah.
know you've got to have looked at the porn or it's on your phone in order to send it to me. There's a
Right.
lot of things that have to happen in order for you to do that, but it's just funny. Sexting and texting, that's another example of, I guess you could call that hidden porn. People don't even think of that as porn. That is porn. That's part of a pornified culture that we live in, where people they have to look at the little things because they lead to the big things.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I talk about addiction, and the addiction is not really like one addiction. It's like they talk about in marketing. You got funnels, and addiction is like, 250 other habits that you need to address that funnel into the big addiction. So when you deal with the addiction, really you got to deal with the 256 habits, and it's by dealing with the 250 habits that the addiction goes away.
Mm-hmm.
And what most people do is they never even deal with the habit in the first place. So I don't know what they do. They just wish that they're going to be okay, and it doesn't happen. So talk to
Yeah.
me about habitual, compulsive, impulsive.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about the person who is addicted, the 250 things you have to face. So, and I guess this ties into compulsion too. So you have a porn addict, a habitual porn user, hit rock bottom and realize I need to change my life. This is a whole major, complete overhaul that they need to do, because now they have to face themselves. Now they have to face, I'm running away from myself with this porn addiction. I'm running away from myself. Now I have to face myself, face my insecurities. It becomes very raw and it becomes very hard. And I know you probably do great work with the people you help, finding out, who are you? What is your purpose? Why are you doing this? And how can we stop it? We can't just stop the habit. We have to dig deeper. It's not good enough to just, okay, I stopped looking at it. Like you said, you probably will fall back into it in a week, 2 weeks. You have to do that soul searching and that inner work. And you have to look at, what image was I presenting? And wow, was that the real me? What is my image? Because porn users, many times they're pastors with 3 children and they have the great image, and then they're found out child porn. Oh, wow, we didn't know this guy. So there's an image that people put out there. Then they have to face, well, who am I? Well, now that I don't have this, what am I going to do? So, but anyways, those are just some thoughts that I thought about. But compulsion is very strong. And I think I understand addiction, because my addiction, and I've overcome it for at least a year, binge eating, compulsive overeating. When I would get bored or anxious, mostly anxious, I ended up eating too much food. Now, it's not shown because I don't gain a lot of weight, but because I work it out, I'm very athletic. But the point is, when you're compulsive and when you're binge eating, or just being compulsive, just eating food that I didn't need, stuffed myself, stomach aches, going to the bathroom, ate too much. It's so compulsive to feel out of control. So a compulsiveness, you can feel out of control. You turn to it as like Linus's security blanket. It's like a security blanket, and you don't know any. It's your choice of coping. What are you going to choose to cope with? I don't know if most of us are broken in one way or another. Most of us find coping strategies, but I would rather bite my nails or pick my nails than eat food. I'd rather do excessive and a lot of energy, a lot of exercise, but I'm not hurting myself. I recover fine. I went out and swam for 7.5 hours, over 14 miles. And I came back and I felt great. And I had no injury, no shoulder, no problems. So I didn't overdo it because I was trained. But anyways, compulsion it just rules your life. And when something's wrong with your life, if something is dominating and ruling your life, if that's all you're thinking about, you can't wait to go do this next. And that requires, I would say, someone like yourself, a coach or a counselor, or one person, a person to hold your hand and walk through life that you can talk to. I had a good day today. Oh, I wanted to do this, but I didn't. Yay, pat on the back. You didn't do it. Great. Even though you might feel terrible that you didn't do it, like I didn't accomplish anything, but you did if you didn't look at it. So compulsiveness, it dominates our life. We have to find a new way of living.
All right. So we're about ready to wrap up, but I actually have two questions.
Okay.
And I'll roll them into one, and you can deal with them as you want. I'm gonna let this cat out of my office. I'm gonna walk away, so I'm not listening to you.
Okay.
But the question is, I know it's goofy, and I'm full of goofiness. But let's say nobody heard anything that we said today. Let's say they heard nothing. What one thing would you want them to know? And then after that, how do we get in touch with you?
All right. The one thing I want people to know, and it's on the back of my book, and my quote is, your body and soul are worth more than what pornography offers. We human beings are so amazingly complicated and beautiful. You are worth more than pornography. If you struggle with it or have a problem, you can overcome it with the right help, given time. And we are worth more than porn. Porn is really a barbaric way of life when you get caught up in porn. Don't be ashamed. Don't be ashamed that you got caught up in it. You were curious, you got pulled down the rabbit hole. Don't be ashamed. I commend you for being strong one day. If you are going to be a guest on Joseph's show, sharing your story, be ready. When you're ready to share your story, share it. You can help so many other people, but you are worth so much more than porn. All of my social media is Lynn Griesemer. You can see my name there, LynnGriesemer.com, LynnGriesemer.com. The book is on Amazon, available for $9.99 or $7.99 for ebook. I have a YouTube channel called Lynn Griesemer, and it's a plethora of my interests. It will be on marriage, it'll be on porn free, it'll be on swimming. And so I niched down in my life, but now I've expanded out. I'm on Instagram, but I don't use it too much, Lynn Griesemer. I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn. So anyways, the book is there for you. Now you have to probably go, it's not easy to find, and I don't know why. If you go to the main Amazon page and you type in my name in the book, it might not show up. So you might have to go to books. You might have to take just one extra click to find it. And I really, really would love for you to post a review. They say that social proof is when you have at least 25 reviews or ratings. I'm up to 15 now, and it's climbing, so that's good. So if you read the book, please post a review. I'd love to interact with you. I'd love to hear from you. I'm available, and this has been a great conversation. Thank you, Joseph.
Oh, it's my pleasure, and I'll get over to doing a review. I definitely appreciate you stopping by. I didn't tell you at the beginning, but I actually have another podcast that I'm doing kind of more mainstream. So this one will go in there at some point in time for a very mainstream audience and not just star-specific audience. So I appreciate you stopping by, and we put together a pretty good, decent piece of work. I hope that people will take the time to listen to it again if need be. I thank you for stopping by. Again, everybody, it's a pleasure having you all as part of our audience, and hopefully this conversation has made a difference. Again, the opposite of addiction is connection. So go out and make a connection with somebody. Do something different. If you want a life that's different, you're going to have to do something different. So just take it one day at a time. That's all you have to do. Worry about your next move. Worry about nothing, actually, but concentrate on your next right move. Progress over perfection. You don't have to do it right. Just do it and adjust and get better. We'll see you next time. Thanks for stopping by. I'm Joseph F. Price, Coach Joey.